My name's Miles. I'm 28, a project analyst based out of Seattle, and I just got back from a week-long business trip to Boston. It was one of those career-defining opportunities, my first time leading a full client presentation on my own. I'd spent 3 months prepping for it, running on fumes and espresso, barely sleeping the night before we flew out. So when I landed back at Seattle-Tacoma, the only thing on my mind was my bed. Or more accurately, my mattress on the floor in the room I'd been crashing in at my parents' house while I saved up for a down payment. I was 2 months away from moving into my own condo. That thought, plus the bag of cannoli from the north end I brought back for my mom, was keeping me upright. But when I pulled into the driveway, something was off. The garage door wasn't broken, but it was wedged open like someone had forced a box under it. I parked, got out, slung my duffel bag over one shoulder and walked closer. That's when I saw it. My stuff. All of it. My desk chair, guitar case, laundry hamper, monitor, even my damn weighted blanket, all piled in a chaotic heap just inside the garage like a yard sale nobody showed up to. The little box of cannoli nearly hit the pavement when my hand went numb. The door from a mudroom swung open like we were in the middle of a sitcom, and there she was, my mom, holding a mug that said, "This might be wine." "Oh, hey, you're back," she said, like I just returned from the grocery store. "What? What is this?" I asked, motioning toward the pile with the pastry box still dangling from my hand. "We had to make space," she said, like she was announcing the weather. "Don't make a scene, sweetheart. We rented your room to a nice older couple from Arizona. They're here for the wine festival." My jaw slackened. "You what? It's not permanent." She waved me off like I was being dramatic. "They're just here through Sunday. Your sister needed help covering her senior photos and the dress rental. You know how important prom is. Think of it as a dry run for moving out." That's when my dad came around the corner, wiping his hands on a dish towel like a sitcom dad who just changed a tire. "We figured you wouldn't mind," he said. "You're barely here anyway." I didn't say anything, not to them. I turned around, opened the trunk of my car, and pulled out a slim black folder, my ace. I've been carrying it with me through TSA, through 4 Uber rides, through the worst coffee of my life, waiting for the right moment. Apparently, this was it. I handed the folder to my mom. "Read this," I said. She opened it with the same distracted interest she gave my LinkedIn updates. But within seconds, her face shifted. Her brow furrowed, mouth twitching. She looked up at me like she wasn't quite sure what she was holding. My dad leaned over her shoulder. His reaction was slower, less shock, more awareness. Like he finally connected dots he hadn't even noticed were on the page. Neither of them said anything. And that silence, it was the sweetest thing I'd heard in years. They hadn't gotten to the second page yet. The page with the part that would make it real. But someone else had. The back door creaked open and I heard the familiar stomp of Converse sneakers. Then a voice I hadn't heard in months that didn't make my skin crawl. "Wait," said Tessa, my younger sister, 23 and professionally entitled. "What is this?" I didn't even look at her. Just walked inside, dropped my duffel by the coat rack, and peeled off my jacket. I was exhausted, not just from the trip, but from the last 5 years of being the financial scaffolding of this house while they played house around me. "You read it," I said calmly. "So now you know. You took your name off the joint account," she spat. "Yep," I said. 6 weeks ago. You just didn't notice because the auto payments kept pulling from my private one. Until now. But you promised to help with prom." I finally turned to face her. "No," I said I'd think about it. And then I found out my bedroom's now a wine-themed Airbnb. She crossed her arms, the way she always did when she wanted to act older than she was. "I needed that money," she said. "And I needed a home," I replied. Apparently, I was the only one who thought I deserved one. She flinched like it physically hit her. Good. Maybe it finally had. I walked past her toward the hallway, and right on cue, my mom's voice rose behind me like she was trying to reel everything back in before it fell apart. "You didn't really cancel everything, right? We were just trying to. You wanted a prom dress from a designer boutique in Soho." I snapped over my shoulder. "Let's not pretend this was about survival." At that point, my dad was sitting at the dining table slowly turning the pages like they were chapters of a book he'd never read before. Each sheet another receipt of just how much I'd done, and how little they'd noticed. He looked older, Not, you stopped paying for the house? He asked. I told you in February I wasn't going to fund this circus forever, I replied. You thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. And that's when things really started to fall apart. To say they were stunned would be an understatement. My mom looked like someone had just unplugged her from her own reality show. But Miles, she said, you didn't even give us a chance. No, I interrupted. I gave you 6 months. You just didn't listen. That's on you. The best part, they still hadn't seen the envelope at the back of the folder, the one I slipped in just before my flight. The real nail in the coffin, but I didn't need to point it out. My sister, being the nosy little drama bomb she is, found it. I heard the flap rip open behind me and her sharp intake of breath. What is this? She hissed. You rented a condo. No, I said. I signed an 18-month lease. Downtown, 5 minutes from work, with a doorman, and a lock no one else has the code to. You didn't even tell us, she snapped like I owed them a memo. You rented out my room to strangers while I was in a different time zone, I said. You don't get to feel betrayed. My dad held up one of the pages. You canceled everything? The utilities, the property taxes, the groceries? I made it official 2 weeks ago, I said. Your name's already on the bills. I figured if you can run a short-term rental, you can handle that. My mom's hands started to tremble. You left us. That word again. Left, like I'd abandoned a loyal team instead of extracting myself from a one-sided leech squad. You left me first, I said, when you put me in the garage like a broken toaster. My sister was pacing now, muttering about how she'd have to take out loans like normal people. My mom collapsed into the kitchen chair, like she was fainting in an old soap opera. This wasn't how it was supposed to go, she whispered. Oh, you mean the part where your son pays the bills, stays quiet, and claps from the sidelines while your daughter gets her dream night in a couture dress? Yet I guess I missed that memo. As I started gathering my things from the garage, my monitor, my guitar, the freaking scented candle I'd gotten in Vermont, I could hear them behind me, whispering, arguing, crumbling. I didn't look back, and right on cue, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. I almost smiled. My dad went to answer it, and there they were, the guests. A couple in their 50s, sunburned, and holding a set of rolling suitcases. I could hear the woman saying, "Is this the right place?" The host said to come around 5. My mom stood up fast. Just give us a moment, she said with a forced smile, so tight it could have cracked glass. I slipped past them and gently tossed my house key on the hallway table. Hope they like the room, I said over my shoulder. I left a mint on the pillow, and I walked out, straight to my car, to my own front door, to a condo I'd toured and signed for weeks ago. No more driveways with passive-aggressive wreaths. No more dinner conversations that ended in guilt. Just me, four walls, a lock, and peace. That first night, I didn't even unpack. Just ordered pizza, lit that Vermont candle, and collapsed onto my still-wrapped mattress with a kind of exhale I hadn't felt in years. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls, texts, voicemails. Mom, we need to talk. The couple left. Said the room smelled like mildew. Clara, I missed my final fitting. Are you happy now? Dad, the Wi-Fi's down. Do you know the password? I didn't respond. Not to any of them. Not because I didn't care, God. I cared too much, but because I finally understood something. Caring doesn't mean servitude. It doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of being the good one. For too long, I let them build a castle on my back while treating me like the basement. Not anymore. Tuesday rolled around, and the messages kept shifting tone, from indignant to frantic to weirdly polite. Mom, Miles, can you just send a refund from your account? They're asking for it back. Clara, I have no ride to the formal now. You know I needed that car. Dad, please call. We need to know what to do about the bills. I ignored them all. Then Wednesday came, and with it, the real fallout. 5 missed calls from Dad. 1 voicemail. You're taking the car back. That meant they found the envelope. The one tucked behind all the utilities with a letter from the DMV stating that the car, my car, the one they'd been using rent-free for 2 years, was no longer in their names. Transferred to my friend Cam, that a guy who not only paid insurance, but knew how to change his own oil. And guess who had been racking up parking tickets on that car? Letting the registration lapse? Letting the tires bald? Clara. And guess whose name was still on the paperwork up until last week? That's right. Mine. But not anymore. Her text came right after my dad's. I needed that car to get to graduation. What am I supposed to do now? I didn't answer, because I'd finally realized I'm not their backup plan. I'm not their get-out-of-jail card. I'm not the family ATM. The days of playing the invisible provider were over. And my mom? She was about to make her next move. The final move. But I was ready for it. The call came Saturday morning. Not from Mom, not from Dad, from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year, Aunt Denise. She's one of those relatives who disappears until there's drama, then magically reappears with vague concern and an open ear. "Miles," she said, her voice cautious, like she was trying to pet a wild animal. "Did you really pull out of the trust?" I froze mid-pour with my coffee. "Excuse me? The family trust. Your dad's been calling everyone. Says you drained it. That you removed yourself from the shared inheritance account. Eastside, CT moved down." I didn't drain anything. I moved it into a holding account. Still in my name. Just not accessible to them. There was a pause. "Your mom is going to flip." "She already did," I said, back when she listed me on Booking.com. Aunt Denise didn't laugh, but then she said something I hadn't expected. "I warned her, you know. Years ago, I told your mom she was pushing too hard. That one day you'd snap. And she said that you were the good one. That you'd never leave. Never turn your back on family. That word again, good. Used like a leash, not a compliment. Not anymore." "Well," I said, "tell her the good one finally learned to say no." I hung up, but I knew that wasn't the end. My mother is not the kind of woman who goes down without a final move. She doesn't scream or throw things. She plots. She frames narratives like a courtroom drama. And when she's cornered, she doesn't apologize. She rewrites. I didn't expect her to show up, but she did. Tuesday night, beige trench coat, Tupperware in one hand, an envelope in the other. She didn't knock, just pressed a buzzer like she was dropping by after yoga. When I opened the door, she smiled. "Miles," she said softly, "can we talk?" I should have slammed the door, but I didn't. Maybe part of me wanted to hear what twist she was going to put on this. Maybe I wanted closure. Or maybe I was still a little kid hoping this one time, she'd mean it. She stepped in slowly, looking around my one bedroom like it offended her. "I brought pasta," she offered, setting the Tupperware on the counter. "Spinach and ricotta. Your favorite." I didn't touch it. She turned to me, hand clasped, performance mode activated. "Your father's stressed. I haven't seen him this anxious since Grandma's stroke." Clara missed prom entirely. "She's devastated. She could have had her dress," I replied, "if she hadn't turned my bed into a cash register." "I know," she said quietly. "We didn't handle it well. It got out of hand, but it wasn't meant to go this far." I said nothing. She stepped closer. "You always made more than we expected. You never said no. I think. I forgot that you're not a safety net." I nearly laughed. That might have been the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. But she wasn't done. She reached in her coat and pulled out a folded paper. "I found this," she said, "while cleaning your closet." The paper, my breath, caught in my throat. It was the letter, that letter. I knew it immediately. Second year of college. A therapy assignment. Something I never intended for anyone else to read. She unfolded it delicately, like it might break. "You wrote that you were tired of being invisible. That you felt like you were only there to be used. That you didn't think anyone would even notice if you disappeared." I didn't speak. "I read it," she said, and for the first time, I realized something I didn't want to admit. That I failed you. Her voice cracked. "I raised you to be dependable, but I didn't raise you to set boundaries. I raised you to serve." That was the moment I almost cried. I hadn't cried in front of my mom since I was 12 and broke my arm in gym class. But hearing her say that out loud did something to me. Then she stepped closer, put the letter gently on the table beside the untouched pasta. "I came here to say that you're right. You don't owe us anything. Not money. Not forgiveness. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to build something new." It should have felt like a win. Instead, it felt like mourning. Like something old and broken had finally died, and all that was left was the grief. I walked her to the door. She didn't hug me. She just nodded. "Be well," she said, and then she left. 3 weeks passed. She didn't call, I didn't either. Until Sunday morning, that's when the voicemail came. Clara's voice, shaky. "Miles," she said. "It's Mom. She fainted. It's not serious, but she's in the hospital. They think it's stress-related. She's asking if you're coming." I listened to the message twice. Then I went. Not because I forgave her, not because I owed her, but because I needed to see her one more time, not as the manipulator, not as the mother who rerouted my life, but as the woman who read my pain and, for once, didn't look away. She looked small in the hospital bed. Pale blue gown, her hair messy. She blinked when I walked in. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she whispered. "I almost didn't," I said. She nodded. "I deserve that." I sat beside her. For a long time, we didn't speak. Just listened to machines beep and air vents hum. Then she said, "Your father canceled Clara's credit card." I raised an eyebrow. He said it was time she learned what real life costs. I told him that was your idea. I smirked. It wasn't. But I appreciated the credit. "We lost you," she said. "No," I replied. "You didn't lose me. I just stopped being yours to use." She closed her eyes. "That's fair." We talked for maybe an hour. About nothing, really. The weathered MY job. How the cannoli from Boston wasn't as good as she remembered. When I left, I didn't promise to visit again. But I left a bouquet by the window. Just lilies. Simple. The weeks blurred after that hospital visit. We didn't become a Hallmark family overnight. But something shifted out of fragile, strange quiet. The kind that follows a long war when nobody knows what to do without the fighting. They didn't call much. And when they did for the first time in my adult life, it wasn't to ask for something. "No, can you cover rent?" "No, Clara needs help with tuition." "No, your dad's truck won't start again." Just, "How are you?" It felt weird, foreign, like when you see a teacher outside school and there's suddenly just a person. Clara, somehow, got a job. Actually, two, one at a juice bar, another at a doggy daycare. She moved in with a friend in a cramped apartment by the bus station and, according to Facebook, discovered what rent feels like. Dad sold a second car, and then this blew my mind. They put the house up for sale. Said it was too big now, too expensive. Maybe it always was. At least too big for the lie it had become. I never moved back. Never even visited the street again. But then about 6 months later, I got a letter. Real one. Postmarked in return address. Just my name on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in my mom's handwriting. "You were never invisible. I just wasn't looking hard enough." Taped to the bottom was a photo. Christmas morning, I must have been 7. Holding a cheap red plastic guitar, grinning like I'd won the lottery. On the back, in pen, "This was the day you stopped asking for help and started giving it." That one hit me in the chest. Not because I forgave her, not because everything was suddenly okay, but because for the first time, she'd said what I needed to hear since I was 17, that she saw me. I kept that photo, framed it actually, not as a trophy, not as revenge, but as a marker, like a stone on a hiking trail. A reminder that this part of my life was real, that the boy in that photo gave more than he ever should have. And now he was done, not bitter, not broken, just free. After that photo and letter arrived, I didn't hear from them again for a while. There were no voicemails, no texts, no surprise visits. Just stillness, like even I knew the boundary had settled like fresh concrete, solid, immovable. I wasn't the same son anymore. Not the fallback, not the financial crutch, not the doormat with a day job. I was Miles, the guy with a locked front door, a 2-burner stove that worked, and a drawer full of takeout menus that didn't come with guilt trips. I went to work. I came home, I slept deeply. I bought myself a new pair of boots without thinking about someone else's overdue phone bill. It felt small, but also revolutionary. Then one Sunday morning, my doorbell rang. This time it wasn't Mom. It was Cam, my friend, the one who now legally owned the family car. He held out a manila envelope. "Your dad gave this to me," he said. "Asked me to get it to you." I hesitated but took it. Inside was a check, payable to me, for the exact amount I'd spent covering the utilities, groceries, and car insurance the past 2 years. Attached was a handwritten note, short, stiff, and unmistakably Dad. I'm not good with words. You already know that. But this is me trying to be better. We owed you more than money. This is just a start. I sat with that note for a long time. It didn't make things right, but it didn't have to, because what I'd built without them was finally enough. A few months later, I bumped into Clara downtown. Pure accident. She was coming out of the doggy daycare, hair in a messy bun, holding a leash that looked more like a kite string with a corgi attached. She froze when she saw me. I expected drama, but all she said was, "Hey." "Hey," I replied. A pause. Then, quietly, "You were right, about all of it." I didn't see it at the time. I nodded. "I know." She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, she smiled at a tired, grown-up kind of smile. "I've got 3 roommates now and a leaky faucet, but I'm figuring it out." That was enough. She walked off. I didn't watch her go. A week later, my mom texted, "In O paragraphs, in O manipulation. Just, the lilies are still on the windowsill. Thank you." And that was that. The fallout had happened. The dust had settled. And what remained was something unfamiliar, but promising. Distance, space, quiet, the kind that isn't sad, but peaceful. It's been over a year now that I still live in that same condo. Still keep the guitar in the corner. Still have that photo on my desk. And when people ask about my family, I tell them the truth. They're learning. So am I. Because healing doesn't come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in canceled auto payments. Sometimes in a mint on the pillow. And sometimes in finally realizing that the good one doesn't have to say yes.